Suneera Madhani. Suneera Madhani.
Without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Suneera.
Hi, I'm Suneera Madhani, a mom of two, daughter of an immigrant, and an unlikely entrepreneur who built $1 billion business. Yes, billion. Now I'm doing it again and building my second unicorn, Worth. Shockingly, less than 2% of female founders ever reach 1 million in revenue, and I'm on a mission to change that. At CEO School, we mentor thousands of women to help them level up in business and in life. We believe that you deserve to have it all because honestly, nothing bad happens when women make more money. Grab a seat because class is officially in session. Welcome to CEO School. Today on the show, I'm so excited to be chatting with Lia Garvin, aka the Team Whisperer. She's a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and an expert when it comes to building high-performing teams. Lia has spent over a decade leading operations at some of the biggest names out there: Google, Microsoft, Apple, you name it. Her work's been featured in places like Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, and CNN. She's here today to drop some serious wisdom on how we as CEOs can lead our teams with confidence and build businesses that actually work for us. Lia, welcome to CEO School.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to be here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to connect with you on this because, we're just chatting pre-show and I was telling Lia that I have, not even knowing it, been a leader my whole career and managing teams. And as a CEO, this is literally the hardest part of my job, like the hardest part of my job. And I feel like I've learned so much about myself. My best moments have been in leadership. My worst moments have been in leadership. I've cried more amount of times than I can think of hiding in the bathroom, after one-on-ones or just dealing with team like crazy. And so I'm so excited for this conversation because I think this is a thing that really holds us back as women. So, something here on the show for CEO School we emphasize is, not just being a CEO, but one of the things is to scale beyond that 7 figures. Yeah. And I find so often that women are so afraid to invest into build teams. And that is such an important part of success. And if we don't have the teams, then, we're not going to be able to scale. So 1, getting the right teams in place, but then 2, which is where you come in, is helping us become, not just a CEO, but an incredible leader. So I'm so excited for this conversation.
Oh, me too. And you hit the nail on the head. Managing people is the hardest part about running a business because it's people, right? And they're complicated and something that works one day doesn't work the next, or we're in a new situation and we have to reestablish all of our tools. And so I think just starting with reassuring everyone listening that if you're struggling with this, everybody is. Like you said, we are all having to navigate this. And the more complexity and uncertainty, and as you grow, now you're in new situations all over again. So even if you feel like, gosh, why is it harder all of a sudden? I think one thing that we can do as well as women is start to think it's our fault, or we must be doing something wrong, or we've just got to work harder and work more. And these are all traps that I know I've fallen into and so many of my clients have. And I think what I'm so excited to talk about today is simple and practical tools so that we feel like we have more in our resources to tap into, and that we don't have to figure out alone, and that we're not alone and navigate all of this.
It really does. I feel like something that you said was why is it happening right now? Yeah. I actually feel so I grew my last team to 400 at Stack. So my first company, I don't remember a moment. So that was almost a 10-year long journey for me. But I literally don't remember a moment. It was the first 6 months where I was a complete solopreneur. Then I added an intern and then my first hire. But as soon as that happened, I don't think there was a month that I didn't onboard a new employee. And so my entire career, it was just, and it used to happen where it was every month, then it was almost every week. I had hiring classes and we started pairing people to build a team up to 400. There was just even a lot in just, I learned on interviewing, recruiting, finding the right team members, firing fast, all of that. But it is still what you said on it's why does it feel like this now? That is a feeling that I felt all the time. There was never a dull moment in our office when it came to people ever. And even right now, even in building Worth this time, so we're a team of about 50 right now. And I also lead small teams. So my team at CEO School, we're a team of 6 maybe, and a couple contractors. So it's a small team. And so I feel like I have very different perspective. I feel like I'm almost like a different leader when it comes to the small team than I am as a CEO in the large company. But there's never a dull moment. That feeling that you mentioned of like, oh my God, everything felt fine. And then why now? Let's talk about some of that. So what are some of the biggest challenges that come about in people? I know it's everything, because I feel like there's not one thing I haven't seen and still I get surprised. But you tell me, what are the things that happen that you see?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we can struggle with as leaders, especially if we've built our business quickly or it's something that we're a real expert in that domain, is it can be really hard to get out of the weeds and to let go. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I see leaders struggle with is this sort of blend of delegating mixed with time management, mixed with figuring out what they should be focusing on, which then in turn prevents our team members from really stepping up. And so a lot of times we look at our teams and we think, gosh, like I'm paying people really well. I brought in people. They seem like but why aren't they just taking ownership? Why aren't they feeling accountable? Why do they ask me every freaking question about every little thing? And sometimes it's because they aren't a right fit. But a lot of times it's because we're actually in a little bit too deep. We're not quite comfortable letting go. Maybe we haven't quite set expectations or really removed ourselves from the day to day. So they're not stepping up because it's like, well, if the boss is here, I don't really know if I should do that or not. Right. So I think one of the big challenges that I see all the time is a leader being pulled in too deep, both some of their own doing and some of the team not stepping up. And so that's one of the first places I start when I'm consulting with business owners or working with teams, is saying like, hey, what is each person responsible for? And are we really working at the right level of altitude? If we are really in the weeds because we have a really junior team or there's something that's super high profile and it's got to have our hands on it, then we set the expectations around that. But it doesn't become the norm that we're like always just kind of in it. And teasing that apart allows us to get a little bit of freedom to think, okay, well, how should I be spending my time as a CEO? You know, what are the ways in which I can be more strategic or growing the business or really, like you said, being out there? Maybe we want to be the, face of recruiting and bringing people in because team is so important. Maybe we have a core part of our service delivery that we do. But when we're all in all the details, like we start forgetting what is most important and it can become really exhausting. And it starts to feel like our team isn't cutting it and it's unsalvageable. But I feel like it often is salvageable once we start to figure out what we really should be working on.
So what I hear you say is it's really just starts with a simple like roles and responsibilities. Like, what am I doing? What are you doing? And I've always, done things called a RACI, right? So something as simple as a RACI. It doesn't have to be a RACI. And I don't even know, I'm sure you know I don't even know what it stands for. I feel like I've learned so much of this stuff without even now I'm like, what is a RACI? Responsible, accountable. What is it? Consultant, informed. Yeah. Okay, boom. Okay, I just call it the RACI. But it is such a simple framework. And I'm actually working on it right now for my Worth marketing team because it has felt that we have a couple roles that keep overlapping. And I'm like, well, they're having a little bit of conflict. And it's like, okay, let's just go back to the RACI to say, okay, what are you actually responsible for and accountable for versus which one are you just being consulted on or informed? So can you speak to a little bit about a process that maybe somebody can take place? Because it seems easy in theory to say, you go do this and you go do this. But also in teams, there's so much collaboration. But that's kind of where some of that friction happens as well.
Yeah. So I love the idea of using a tool like a RACI and really establishing, who is owning the decisions versus collaborating versus providing input, right? That's kind of the essence of a RACI. But I think the process of us figuring out as a leader what we want to be doing or what we should be doing, I think it can come down to doing a simple sort of audit of how we're spending our time. And so when we're feeling inundated with things, I suggest folks look across maybe the past 2, 3, 4 weeks and write down everything you've been doing. And split this now into 3 buckets. And you're going to have bucket number 1 are the things that only you can do. And a lot of times we think it's all of it and it's actually like 2 or 3 things, right? So be really, really judicious with what you're circling there. The stuff that only you can do is the most strategic that really, only you, or if you, maybe we're developing a bench of someone to kind of become your owner operator one day, that person. The second bucket is things that you're doing right now because there's a role that hasn't been filled yet. Maybe you're performing a lot of the kind of COO things or CMO. You're doing a lot in there because you haven't quite hired that senior level person. That's the second bucket. And the beauty of that is that list of responsibilities can become a job description for that next hire, right? So really teasing that apart and saying, hey, I'm doing this right now to get over this hump, but this stuff should be hired out. That's going to be key so that when you find someone, you're able to offload that right away. Mm-hmm. Then the third bucket is like little stuff that we do because it's a habit or we used to do it. Like maybe we're still reviewing email copy in depth or social media or like getting involved in things that could totally be handed off and automated just because it's habitual or something that's in our comfort zone. And then that third bucket is stuff we want to offload right away. A lot of it's stuff that could be performed by a VA or an executive assistant or a coordinator, and that we can move it off or really automate it. And so that's a really lightweight process I suggest folks going through, honestly, on a monthly or quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Because we've always got to be clearing stuff off our plates.
I agree with that. And I think that what you define is more even simpler in terms of it's about me first. So it's about me as a leader first versus my team. My brain always goes like, oh, how am I solving for the team? But you got to solve for you first. So you can't, you have to put your oxygen mask on first. So what are the things that you are doing as a leader? I have a similar time audit exercise that I do for life and for business. I call it do, delegate, delete. I do this for every process. Yes. So what am I doing? What am I delegating? And what am I just deleting? Because there's so many, or automating, right? Delete, automate, getting rid of, or really actually offloading it. I feel like what happens though, and this all sounds great, and I'm going to push a little bit, okay? Because it's real, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the social media task. Let's take that one as an example. I think that's such an easy one that we can all hire for, that we can all automate. It's not something you have to do. Maybe you have to be the one to film or to do the, the thing, but it could fully be managed, delegated. Yeah. And then what stops us? Like, why are we in the way? And what's that process? Because what I find, especially as women, like we're such perfectionists about everything, and then it's not good enough, or in our mind, we're like, it's not good enough, or we didn't like it. And it feels too, like, it's hard for us to let it go if it's not in, it's not
then it's
like,
right. I'll do it myself. Why not?
I'll do it myself. And then what happens is it's just easier for me to do it. Yeah. And that's how it comes back into that time audit where I thought I had let it go. And then it comes back into, I have my thoughts on how I've gotten rid of those things, but I'd love to hear yours.
I love this question because every business owner asks me this, especially when I'm talking to someone about, translating some of the secret sauce of their business, of their service that feels so intuitive to them. And this is something a lot of us struggle with because it's hard to teach something that comes naturally to you. And then it's like really freaking hard to delegate it because it's like obvious, like, why don't you get it? What's happening here, right? And then we get frustrated, and then it is faster to ourselves that first few times, but then we're stuck. So I see this all the time. And one of the things that I suggest is to, when you're performing that task, like let's say, go through it as you would, and actually film yourself and narrate every single step you're doing and the thought process behind it. So literally, so that not just going through it and making, a video tutorial where someone has no idea, but you say, okay, when I write the copy, I really want to make sure that it comes across in a warm and approachable tone, but not cheesy. And so these are kind of some of the words I look for, right? Or maybe you've done a pass in ChatGPT and you're editing it, right? And you're saying, okay, these are the things I look for. This is the stuff that makes it sound robotic and automated, and this is stuff that makes it sound human. Here's some of the pitfalls that I've seen in the past when I've gotten this back from folks. And you narrate all of the things that you think through that are intuitive to you. But they're the micro decisions that you're making that actually set it apart. And I want to give two examples. One is from a med spa owner that I work with. So she's based in the Bay Area. She has this whole facial rebalancing system that she's created. When she looks at you, she is like Michelangelo, like about to sculpt your ultimate solution. And she came to me frustrated that...
Please give me her number later.
I know. I will put her in the show notes. She's incredible. And she was frustrated because when she would watch her team members doing consults, she's like, hello, like, look at this person. Like, why would you miss that? Why would you suggest that? And she felt like she could never translate this. And I said to her, okay, well, instead of just after the fact saying, you missed this, pull up a picture of a celebrity or whoever it is, or maybe it's yourself, a before, whatever, and actually show your team how you go through it. You know, when I look at a face, or before a client even comes in, this was something awesome she did. She would look at their social media and Google them and see like, hey, do they seem to have a really active lifestyle? Are they in the sun a lot? Are they traveling really far to come here? And then she would create a holistic experience when she would start doing the consult. It had to do with what she would suggest as far as treatments. Like if they live in a really sunny area, then lasers wouldn't be the right thing or something like that. If they were far away, then something that had a lot of follow-up wouldn't be the case. And she put together this whole story so she could give someone a comprehensive plan. And I said, your team member's never going to know that just by looking at someone's face, right? Like that's the magic that you share. And so any time we are feeling like our team's coming up short, why aren't they getting it? I still have to get in the weeds because they're missing these things that really set us apart in the market. It's actually a great exercise for you to think about, well, how can I articulate some of the magic that I bring? And this same client said, well, you know, I want to make sure that someone doesn't steal my process or, you know, go out without me. And I said, you're always going to have that magic. It's intuitive to you, but now you're able to scale yourself and you're able to offload some of these pieces and create a bench of experts that can help you achieve your bigger goals. Because a lot of us that operate in our business as one of the primary service deliverers, that's not where we want to be always. Or maybe we want to be with a fewer high profile clients, but you know, there's an opportunity to get to that when we've been able to translate some of that. And so whether that's doing that in person or over videos or designing kind of a training program with your teams, or just giving them routine feedback around, hey, when you observe them, micro feedback and little reinforcements, all that is how you're able to scale yourself so that you're not always thinking, no one's getting it. I have to do it myself. They're never going to figure it out, because they're actually not if you're always stepping in and you're always taking responsibility.
I love that. And I think that that's really, that is it, right? Because no one can read your mind. We expect everyone to be able to read our mind. And so I love that you're like, actually take them through your mind, go through your mind process so they can read your mind and understand that. Something that I've also like learned to be okay with. And it's, for me, I feel like this is what has helped me in scaling teams is it's never going to be at 100%. Like it's okay that it's at 80%. And it's okay that it's at 80%. And then I come in to add in that 20% magic touch. So I know where things like, I'm like, this is what good enough looks like. Yeah. And I have to just be also okay with good enough, because when we sit here and fixate over that last bit, we're the only ones that are seeing it and that are getting so caught up. And it's really actually causing slowdown of our entire business, because we're so stuck in perfecting something that doesn't matter to anybody else but you. At all. It doesn't matter to anybody else. And I learned that specifically for social media. I have gotten so comfortable on posting or like my team posting on social media now that I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's okay. I could take it down if I like absolutely hate it. Like I could take it down, or like, I used to overthink because it's like my voice, my words, and my, it's just my ego that's like stopping this versus being like, it's good enough and it's great. And people are loving it. And if and I can also train against it to say, hey, for next time, I'd love if we use this language, or I'd love if we'd use this language. And so I have also gotten just comfortable with it being good enough. And that's like a mental mindset as a leader. And it doesn't mean that I'm expecting less, because I want my teams to be high performance team, which is your book. Right. And so I want to go into that. So what makes, like, I do feel like we've been able, and I say we, me and my co-founder, my brother is my co-founder, we've been able to build high performing teams. Like we are a team of always A players around, and it's very quick when we identify to say if someone's not going to cut it. It happens really, really fast. Yeah. I would love for you to share a little bit about your book and just high performance teams. Like, what makes a high performance team? Because we all want it. Yeah. How do we get that?
Yeah. So I'll share a little of my two books around managing teams. First is The Unstoppable Team, where I talk about, the ingredients to a really high performing team, which I find to be a lot of clarity around how we're going to get things done. Because a lot of times as a business owner, we have the what and we have the why. We can get people around a vision and a strategy, but the how we're going to get there is really unclear. And that's where everything slows down. Right? Because maybe we are that visionary, but we don't have that operator. We don't have, all the details figured out because we have other people to do that for us. But when we haven't thought that through, our teams can have duplication of efforts. They're not really clear with the priorities. There's too much work and they don't know what to do first, right? All of these little issues come up. And so the Unstoppable Team is about my 6-part framework for helping businesses really create a seamless system across priorities and expectations and work tracking, delegating, and these performance and all these different things that we've talked about. In my other book, The New Manager Playbook, talks about really the fundamentals of managing, setting expectations, feedback, hard conversations, managing former friends and peers. And really, kind of the stuff that's the toughest stuff that, like we talked about, even if you're a seasoned leader, these things can show up again and again because situations change. Now, the biggest ingredient I have seen in every company I've ever worked at, this is working in, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Bank of America, at chief of staff level, working with SVPs, all the way to the ground level organizations, working as a consultant, companies big and small in any industry. The biggest issue is a lack of accountability. Hands down. There is no bigger issue I've ever seen. And I was once I started observing it, it was always the problem. And what I mean by lack of accountability is twofold, right? There's either, we say we want to see this, but like we've made a decision and then it's okay that it's reopened later, or we set priorities and we don't really follow up, or, a leader feels uncomfortable with holding people accountable. Like you said you were going to deliver on this and you didn't, what happens next, right? And the biggest challenge isn't just setting these targets and goals and putting it out there. And I think that's where a lot of us fall short is we say accountability is important and we want to, and I see accountability as ownership. So we want people to be proactive and own the solution and not just come forward with problems. We say that and we set it, but we don't follow up. Accountability is truly about the follow-up. It's what happens when we don't hit that deadline. Doesn't mean everybody gets fired, right? But there's a conversation. A quick shift is, a lot of times folks, you run a team meeting, you have people tracking their metrics or results, and maybe you meet weekly or monthly and you share what the numbers are, right? You share, okay, here's where we're at team by team. And you say, okay, like, let me know yours is down this week. What are you going to do next month to turn that around?
Yeah.
That actually keeps accountability in your court. What I suggest to business owners is actually people should be responsible for pulling their own reports, knowing their numbers, and in the meeting presenting, here's where I'm at and here's what I'm already doing to course correct. That simple shift puts the accountability in their court, that they're not just responding to a request. They're owning those metrics and they're owning the follow-up.
So how do you get that? I want to interrupt you here. Really. I'm sorry I just want how. So how do you get that? Right. Because we all want that. And that is something that is super, super. When you said accountability, I'm like, done. Ownership, like literally biggest value in business is ownership. You have to have that. How do you get the team to take that ownership? Yeah. So you have the process, you have the scorecard, you have the stuff. Let's say it's a sales target, right? So I'm dealing with that, and you can coach me through this with a leader supposed to do X number of sales demos or sales and didn't hit their target. And I understand, right? So you can still be empathetic and understanding. And there was a lot else happening in the business. The leads weren't there, whatever that was. I did have that conversation, but how do I shift that conversation for it to be from them first? Yeah. So the slight reframe, and maybe you did this already, but I would say, hey, we meet monthly, and this is the structure of that meeting, is that you, the team member, have already pulled your reports. You come to this meeting ready to talk about where you're at. If it's on track, how you're going to keep going with that. And if it's off track, what you have in place to do that.
in saying, hey, talking about sort of the issues of why and how and whatever of why we didn't hit something is less important to the plan of how we're moving forward. And what I will be offering you in that meeting as the manager, boss, whatever, is feedback on that plan, some insights, but you're bringing me the plan. I'm not going to give you a plan. And then
I love that.
They're presenting it to you as opposed to responding to you and saying, and let's say a month goes by and they haven't hit it again. You know, they still own that and they're sharing it again in another month. Then you're starting to see, well, are they just saying they're going to do the exact same thing next month? Copy paste? Like, no, you know what I mean? And then you're saying, is this person able to see a downward trend and the need to be creative and to try other things? And you'll be able to see that within, you know, these reviews are happening monthly, whatever. So you're going to catch that. And if they are able to pivot and adjust, now you're seeing a leader that's really feels that personal accountability, right? And if you see someone that just throws copy and paste, here's my plan, still not working, still no leads, still someone else's fault, that person is not taking ownership. And then it's a conversation about, is this person a fit or not? And you mentioned the importance of firing fast. You know, the clearer we are with expectations, the more there is no question if someone has met those or not, right? And so even talking about, hey, this is the targets, here's some of the things that are in our control, here's some of the things that are out of our control. When we run into these issues, I want you to present the solutions that aren't only revolving around these set of things, right?
I love that.
Right, a true leader is going to get creative. They're going to talk to people in other departments. They're going to talk to people in other companies and industries and keep building and edifying themselves, right? They're not just going to sit there and ask for answers. And I think when you have a high-performing team like you've built, the thing that you have pulled out of people, which is amazing, is that they have that sense of personal accountability. And they know that it's not going to fly to sit there and come to you and be like, I don't know. They know that. So there's a level of respect there. And there's a level of predictability and trust that you've established that, like, hey, this is how you interact with me, you know, and people rise to that.
I agree with that. And I think the thing that I have found that's missing, you said that, you know, one of the things that it's that level of, here's this meeting that takes place. Let's just talk about the basics there, because I have also seen where leaders fully avoid let's talk about like the micromanager versus like the completely absent leader. And I see this a lot with women as CEOs, like we're like, oh, well, it's a lot. I just want to trust my team. And that's important too. But when we don't have cadences built in place of team management, it is important to have that space of accountability, to have that space of conversation. What are your thoughts there on cadences, how often you should meet? Just talk me through that, because that in and of itself, it can happen if we have that cadence already established.
Oh my God. You're speaking my language as a team operations person. Hell yes. Like if you don't have a if you don't have a regular operating cadence, you're not really running a business that you can track, right? Because what are those forums, right? It cannot feel random. It cannot feel like, hey, you're going to come in there and out of nowhere be like, give me all the information. And then they're freaked out and they're always on high alert. Right. So I recommend having, you know, a set of meetings that are in place that are, you know, you have clear agendas, clear amount of attendees, that you have people know exactly what they're there to share. I've already said that people are providing the updates. You're not just talking for an hour and everyone's nodding their heads. So an example of some of those meetings would be having, you know, like an annual planning meeting to talk about the goals. Maybe you're talking about how last year ended, this year goals. Everyone's really, you know, getting bought into where you're going as a business. I often encourage folks not to just start with a revenue target, but how each person wins together, right? Like your employees aren't like excited just hearing you want to make $5 million next year. It's like, hey, what do I get when I put that in? So really starting with the employee benefit and then talking about, well, we're going to get there through the revenue is just a little shift. So having an annual meeting, having quarterly reviews on goals and plans, so we see how we're working towards that. And then whether you have, you know, projects you're running, there's maybe sub-project meetings that those teams meet about weekly to talk about progress.
There are meetings. There are meetings. I literally on stage at the last MFC event, which you're coming to, which I'm so excited you're coming to. We were doing a panel and there was a conversation around, well, we don't need to have meetings like on this, like we don't need to have meetings. Meetings are important.
Yeah.
Like if you want operational excellence, that's how you hold your team accountable. Having one-on-ones, having KPI, like having a place to have that. And yes, as a CEO who also runs a smaller business, and there's a lot of freedom involved in that versus a little bit more of like this operational tech company that I run.
Yeah.
Even in the smaller company, I mimic the same. And if it's not me leading it, there's still a leader. And if you're not the one also as a business owner that you're like, I just don't enjoy this, also be okay without that success then too. Or ensure that you have somebody in place that is that leader that can lead. But that disconnect is so huge, and it does require, like if you look at companies that are successful, they do have operational excellence that's around it, whether you're small or you're big. And we just have to, and I'm not saying that we have to waste everyone's times. Like you can have it can be monthly, it could be bi-weekly, it could be in whatever cadence that needs to work, but there needs to be an operational cadence for every business established.
Absolutely. And you mentioned one-on-ones. And I want to hit on this. A lot of times I'm asked, hey, I see my team all day. We sit in the same space, or we're always on Slack. If someone needs me, they can ask a question, or we're in these project meetings all the time. Do I need one-on-ones? The answer is yes. Now you don't need them. Maybe you don't need them weekly, but you need to have a forum where you have an opportunity to connect with that person, to get a little bit under the surface, right? We're not just talking about projects. We're talking about that person's goals, where they're feeling stuck. Maybe we can catch if they're feeling like they're not really motivated and they might be a flight risk for leaving. If we don't have a space for that, we are going to be caught off guard and have our high-performing team members who we love and think is happy one day just say they found another job, and we're not going to know what happened. And there's a lot of data around this. I think Gallup reported last year that 42% of turnover, voluntary turnover, folks said was preventable if their manager just had asked them how they were doing. Okay. And a lot of times we think no news is good news. I don't have time for this. And we don't check in with our teams. Now, just to throw another stat out there, a colleague of mine back at Google, she performed this study company-wide, interviewing 3,000 or 4,000 people to understand, what were qualities that your manager did that made you feel, like included and like you were best set up for success. The number one most important thing was that my manager kept our one-on-one meetings and showed up to them on time. And it was funny because she shared this, and I was in a training I was in with my manager, who always rescheduled our one-on-ones. It was always late. And I was looking over like, oh my God, do you hear this? Because these one-on-ones with our teams, they might have been waiting all week to ask us this question. This is their opportunity to show their value and what they're working on and help you have visibility into that. And I think it can be the easiest thing to deprioritize, because it's like, I'll see them later. But actually, it shows someone, I don't really value you, so you're the first thing off my list I cross off when I get busy. Now, there's going to be times when we do get busy. And I talk about this in both my books about the importance of one-on-ones. If we have a week where we have to cancel our one-on-ones, say that up front. Or we have clients in town, we can say, hey, I love my one-on-ones. This week, I'm canceling them because I don't want to have to reschedule because my schedule is really unpredictable. Here are other ways to get in touch. Right? The more context we set up front, now people don't feel slighted and like, again, they're the least important person on earth. But to your point of having an operating cadence, the only way we're going to be able to course correct and fix little things and really be able to cultivate high performers is to have some kind of forum. Now, I would say they should not be an hour, and they don't have to be every week. But if you can connect with folks every other week, 15, 30 minutes, whatever it looks like, and just have an understanding of, highlights what's going well, what are their focus areas, priorities, and where are they stuck? Because a lot of times people do not tell you until you ask them where they're stuck. Now you're getting a rhythm that's outside of project statuses where you can really help bring out the best in that person.
I love this. I feel like I could just kiss you through the screen right now, because this is so important. And it is the most important thing for your company, for your vision to have execution. you have to have this in place. Like whether it's a 1-person team, a 10-person team, contractors, even. I even believe in this with your agencies or people that you work with. So important. All right. We have to wrap this up. There's so many more questions that I have for you, but I do want to talk about something that's been on my mind of, styles of work, like of employees and team members. Gen Z, talk to me about Gen Z. We have a new workforce that's coming in. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the benefits? Like, what are the things that we should be like? I feel like I've gotten to work through many different kinds of team members. But I hear from a lot of the women in our Millionaire Founders Club and things like that it's just been hard finding the right fit talent or connecting with the right fit talent. We've got a lot of millennial leaders that are now leading Gen Z. Would love some insight into that. Yeah.
So it's a question I hear a lot. And I think there's both, we might be managing folks younger than us, and we also might be managing folks much older than us. And both of those things can become a challenge. And I think in both situations, it may sound silly, but I think avoiding jumping in with the generalizations, because that out of the gate, people can feel that, and that's going to create like a breakdown in trust. I think back to expectations, right? The more clear we are and establish upfront what we expect to see, what the goals and outcomes are, this takes away some of the guesswork. Now, when you're managing someone older than you, I just want to say that one first, because it's a little more straightforward. I think, you might become a leader if you're within a large team, not as a CEO potentially, but like, that was the job that person wanted, or they feel like, well, they know more about it than you. And like how you're like, they can feel maybe a little bit slighted, like, that they are not as ahead or in that role that you are. So it's really important to validate and recognize the expertise they do bring, not make it seem like that's something in the past and we don't value that anymore, and they're just like an extra pair of hands. And so when you enter that situation, I think really, leaning on that person for the expertise they have while setting a clear direction of how that works with the other things that we're doing and the new things, so that it doesn't become this weird thing where you don't feel like you can give feedback because they have more experience or whatever, right? So it's a little bit of both. And I talk about that in my new book, The New Manager Playbook. When we're managing Gen Z, I think, that's one where the generalizations are flying around. A couple of things, though, that, kind of data is showing is Gen Z values flexibility a lot more. They are not completely anti-return to office, like I think folks had been speculating. So there is an interest of some in-person connection, but they, another generation have a different relationship with rising through the ranks in a company, with time, with money, with work. And so some of the things that a lot of us millennials were like, just like rise through the ranks as fast as possible, and I just want to hit goal. And maybe it's as an Enneagram 3, but like, that's how I was. I see it, Gen Z. I'm like, why does this person care? Like, they don't want to get paid more? What is it?
Yeah.
And we get frustrated. And as a business owner, we got to remember, and Gary Vee says this all the time, so many of us, no one is going to care as much about your business as you. So that's just, first of all, whatever age that person is, right? But we get people bought in by creating a sense of purpose and meaning for them, and by really understanding what motivates that person. And sometimes it's not going to be money. And so that can really throw us off, right? And I think especially with potentially a team member that's motivated more by, they just are motivated by flexibility, or they like, they don't want to be tied down. Figure out how, one, if that person is the right fit for what your company needs, and then figuring out how do you create incentives that support what they want. And so if they don't only care about money, you can't say the only benefit is their raise. You got to figure out something else. Maybe they want exposure to learn new skills. Maybe they want to, be a manager or mentor other people. And that we figure out by talking to them. And so having conversations with folks, not making promises, right? But sort of sussing out what are our team members' goals, aspirations, motivations, and then always figuring out how to connect the dots between each role and where the company's going. Because this is how you create a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning for folks, no matter what their job is you show them they matter. That, hey, even though, not even though, like this person might think, I just answer the phones, or I'm like customer service, or I just pack the boxes and send them to the UPS store. Like, why does my job matter? You might say, hey, We are trying to compete with some of like other luxury, consumer packaged goods brands by packing things meticulously, like having beautiful packaging, by sending it on time. We're able to compete with Amazon and be like out there, like this packaging job might be one of the most important ones out there because that keeps people coming back. Right. Saying to someone, that let's say you run a gym or a med spa and the person that's, cleaning the rooms and the machines off feels like, who cares? Like my job's so thankless. Like, why do I do this? And you say, well, we're trying to operate a luxury facility. The number one thing people notice is when it's a mess or it's dirty or it's gross. That's going to be the first thing that sends people never out the door and never coming back. So your job is critical in growing our membership base and keeping people coming back. And drawing that connection for every role, big or small, tactical or strategic, that's a really solid way to connect with folks. And I think that's going to really be critical to getting Gen Z bought in.
I fully agree with that. And I think what you said, that is the thing to be most mindful of is I think what pisses us off is when people aren't like us. They're like, oh, why don't you want that? Right. Not everybody wants to lead. Not everybody. And I think that is something that what I have learned in managing all kinds of, like from every age to every role, styles of leadership, hybrid. We were a team that was fully in person to then went fully remote to a hybrid model, like all the things. Yeah. At the end of the day, business is personal. That is the biggest lesson as a leader that I know. And that there's a human that is showing up for you. There is a human on the other side, and you have to get to know that human, and you have to support that human, and you have to understand even the basics as their love language, right? Like, how do they want to be appreciated? How do they want praise? What's important to them? And successful teams are the ones that actually feel heard. Those are the successful teams. And I've had all the moments of horrible leadership too. So I'm not like, I've had all of the moments, and I'd love to invite you back to kind of talk about those shit moments too.
Oh, sure. Anytime.
Because it's true. Me and my HR leader, we always joke that we're going to have a podcast one day, but we're going to blur ourselves with like our voice translator and then have like a blurred screen so we can actually share some of the most ridiculous things that we have seen over a decade of managing and hiring and firing and things. And it is definitely a big job, but it is an important one. And so I appreciate Lia, you being here. I really value this conversation so much. And I want our women to feel confident in themselves as a leader too. So it's, there are playbooks, right? So we can grab Lia's playbooks, we can listen to her podcast, we can grab the books, but I also want you to trust your gut. Like, I want you to trust your instincts as a leader. And this is what we as women do absolutely the best. Like, this is actually our greatest asset, our greatest skill. We are empathetic. We put the human first. We're incredible at building relationships and connections. And that's what makes for an incredible leader. So lean into those natural tendencies that you have and just spend time. Like, what else do you, it's like spending time with the people that you love, spending time with the people that you work with as well. And so that does require a little bit of the cadences and the meetings and the playbooks, but those are just learned. Like, those are the things that are just, you check the box. The part that's the hardest, and I see men struggle with that all the time, is actually the stuff that it's so easy for us. So I want to encourage every woman that's listening, every CEO that's listening to start doing that with your team. You're all, like, lean into those natural things. Lia is such an incredible resource. We're going to have her back. You're going to be at our April retreat for Millionaire Founders Club. I'm so excited for those that want to come join us and also meet Lia in person. We are going to be hosting our Millionaire Founders Club retreat in Orlando, April 24th through the 27th. It is for 7+ figure CEOs. So if it is something that, if you are a 7+ figure CEO, I'm going to link MFC into the show notes. So go check it out. We'd love to have you in person. And Lia, where can we find you? Where can we support you? Because we need so much more of this. And you're coming back on, and we're going to do that, like the crazy show. I need to do that.
I have all the pitfalls ready. So you can find me on my website, liagarvin.com. That's LIAGARVIN. Definitely encourage you to check out the podcast, Managing Made Simple. I dive into all the topics we talked about today and more in short 15-minute episodes that really give you a tool right away that you can apply. So that's Managing Made Simple. My 2 books are The New Manager Playbook and The Unstoppable Team. You can get both of those on my website or on Amazon, and or connect with me on Instagram at lia.garvin. So I love to connect with folks, love to hear where you're getting stuck, support teams through consulting, through setting up your team operations playbook, through coaching, workshops, all sorts of ways. So if you want some support, let me know.
Okay, Lia, you're our girl. Thank you so much for the time today. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Screenshot this episode, post it on social, tag Lia, tag us at CO School, tag Suneera. I'd love to carry the conversation forward,
yes.
And pull it out of our ears and into actual tactical application. So we'll see you guys online, and I'll see you next week at the CO School. Bye, everyone. Bye, Leah.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.